Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video we're doing some Christmas decor using IOD molds with resin. For our first project, I'm going to be using amazing casting resin. I'm pouring out equal parts A and B, and then I'm going to mix them well together for about 30 seconds until that mixture turns clear. I'm going to be using IOD's olive crest mold, and I'm particularly going to be using the beautiful olive laurels there, and I'm going to cast 2 sets of these, and we're going to be adding them to this Kmart wooden ring. So I got that from Kmart Australia last year. I'm going to take my molds out as soon as they are ready because they are more flexible at this point. I'm then going to bend and manipulate them so that they are going to conform to the shape of my wooden ring. I'm just playing around here with the positioning, and then when I'm happy, I'm going to use some hot glue on the back of my castings to attach it to the wood ring. Just a reminder that you can find a full product list in the description of this video and most of these products on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Once I have these 2 pieces glued down, I'm going to use a wet wipe to wipe back any excess glue. I'm then going to grab the other 2 pieces from the same mold, and we're going to continue our design around the wooden ring here. So I'm just adding some more glue to the back, and we're going to position them in place. If you didn't want to use hot glue, super glue could also be another good option. I like to use Gorilla Super Glue Gel, but I really wanted something that was going to fix these pieces to my surface straight away so that my resin pieces wouldn't move as they were drying. Once I have all of my pieces glued down, I'm going to be using Dixie Belle's Latte chalk mineral paint, and I'm going to be doing 1 coat to start off with. I'm really going to work that paint into all of those details, and I'm also going to be painting the inside and the outside edge of the wooden ring and also the back, because I don't know how this might be used. If it's positioned up against a mirror, for example, you would see these pieces that I'd missed if I don't paint them. So I'm definitely keeping it in mind how this might be hung in someone's home as I'm painting it. So I'm going to continue to work my way around this wreath until I have given it at least 1 coat of the Latte chalk mineral paint. Once the first coat of my paint is dry, I'm going to go back in with another coat, but this time I'm going to dab and stipple that product on so that we get some texture. I want this to be a little bit reminiscent of metal, so I want to get that texture in there, so dabbing and stippling that paint on is definitely going to help me to achieve that look. Something else that you could do is use some kind of texture additive with your paint to make even more texture. I'm then grabbing my hairdryer, and I'm going to speed up that drying process, as this will also help to create that texture we're looking for. Once that's dry, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard Satin Top Coat, and I'm going to seal the entire wreath. This is going to protect the paint, but it's also going to be a great base for our next step, which is glaze. I'm definitely loving using glaze over this color. I did an ornament video last week where I did a similar color combination. When that's dry, I'm taking Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze, and I'm going to work it into all of the details of our olive crest castings. These are so beautifully detailed, and that glaze is really highlighting all of that. So once I've got the product on there, you can see I'm using a wet wipe to wipe back that excess. I also have my mister handy so that if I need to, I can add some water to thin it out. This is a water-based product, so I do have the freedom to do that. But I actually really liked the variation in tone, the intensity of that, so I didn't end up using it. As I was adding this beautiful glaze, it actually reminded me a little bit of a rust look, so I'm definitely going to keep that in mind for future projects. Now at this point, you could definitely leave it here. If you liked this look, it would probably be a bit more of a neutral wreath, but this is a Christmas video, so once my glaze is dry, I'm going to grab Paint Couture's Vintage Lace Luxe Metallic Paint, and I'm going to run it over the top of the details of our castings, and as you can see, it's giving it a a beautiful shimmer and shine. I'm not going into all of the details, I'm just running my brush over the top, and I don't mind if I miss certain spots, that's okay. We don't want this to be completely opaque. I just want that beautiful shimmer and shine on those details. Once that's dry, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Antique Gold. I'm getting a little bit on an artist brush, and I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to be adding that gold to the olives that are in that olive crest casting. And I'm going to work my way around that wreath and only add that gold to those little olives. If you wanted a bit more of a traditional look, maybe at the beginning you would have used a green paint instead of using the latte color that I used, and now you would come in with a red, for example, and maybe make those olives look more like berries. Next, I want to create a bow for the top. Now I have this mold here, I will link it below, but I only want to cast the bow that's up the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my hot glue gun and I'm going to create a few little dams. So I'm just putting that hot glue in the sections where I want my resin to stop. I'm probably going to have to go in and add a few layers here to build up that wall to stop that resin from going any further, but anywhere that I don't want that resin to continue, I am adding that hot glue. This is definitely a great way to save your resin and make sure that you're only casting exactly what you want. So keep this in mind in the future if there is a mold that you have that you only want to cast a little part of it. When my glue is dry, I'm going to take my amazing casting resin and I'm just going to pour that resin into the section that I've created using those glue dams, and I'm going to keep going until I have the entire piece that I want filled with resin. And then this is what we are left with, and I'm envisioning it up the top there, but first I am going to paint it with Paint Couture's Antique Gold paint. It's only going to take one coat to get the coverage I want on this, and then it will be ready to go. I'm loving all these beautiful metallics and this gold, but again, if you want to go more traditional, a red paint would look beautiful on a casting like this and would definitely give that more traditional Victorian Christmas feel if that's what you're going for and you're going to try this wreath project. If I've inspired you to try some of these Paint Couture products, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. I just get a little thank you from Paint Couture. I will leave that link in the description and also pop it on the screen. Once my gold paint is completely dry, I'm going to use my hot glue gun and I'm going to put some glue in the area where I want to add my bow, and then I'm going to carefully position it in place. If you have any issues getting your casting to fit the way that you want, remember you can heat your resin up again so that you can pull it and stretch it in any way that you want. I did get a bit of excess glue that you could see, so I just took some of my vintage lace paint again on a small artist brush and I just used that to cover the glue. And here's our finished resin wreath. I love how this turned out. It's definitely amazing what resin, molds, and paint can do. Let me know what you think of this project in the comments. For my second project today, I'm going to be pouring some resin in IOD's Holly Lane mold. This was from their Christmas release last year, and I've already cast another one of these pine cones, and I'm just going to put some string in my wet resin. We're going to be using that because we're creating an ornament. I'm then going to take another one of those pine cones that I've pre-casted and I'm positioning it over the top of my wet resin, and you can see here once it's all dry, it's all combined and sort of fused together and we have a double-sided ornament. I do have some excess resin there, but I'm just going to pull it off with my finger, and then I'm also going to use a little craft knife to further remove any of that excess resin. This is a pretty easy thing to do. Once I'm happy with how that's looking, I'm going to take some tape and I am going to add it to the little string that we put in the resin while it was still wet. I don't want to get paint on that. I want that to be nice and clean so it looks tidy when it's hanging from the tree. So I'm just protecting that with the tape. I'm then going to be using Dixie Belle's Vintage Duck Egg, and I'm going to be applying that to both sides of our ornament here. And as you can see, this pine cone casting is so beautiful and so detailed. It's only going to take one coat here as my paint is so highly pigmented. I just wanted to take a quick moment to tell you guys that I have a free Facebook group. If you didn't already know, I'll have a link for that in the comments. Come and join us, share your projects, interact with other creatives, and I'm there to help you out with any craft questions you might have. Once my paint is dry, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in Satin to seal my paint in. Once that clear coat is dry, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Antique Gold paint and I'm going to be running it over the top of the details of our pine cone. I'm also working it into some of the lower parts of the pine cone design there in certain areas. I really want this to look like perhaps gold gilding that has worn away over time. I still want to be able to see that lovely vintage duck egg that we painted, but I still do want that hint of gold, that lovely metallic shine that we associate with Christmas decorations. So I'm being pretty random about this. If you're going to do it, it'll be up to you how much gold and how much of that blue that you see. And I'm also doing the same effect on the other side of the pine cone. Once that gold is dry, I'm going to take this little bow. It's from IOD's Jingle mold from their release last year, and I'm also going to be using that lovely antique gold paint on this bow. I'm just going to do one coat here. I'm definitely going for a bit more of a French country feel here with the gold and the sort of French style blue. If you wanted to be a bit more traditional, you could go with a red bow at this point, or maybe use a ribbon instead of using a bow mold instead. Once my gold paint is dry, I am going to remove that tape that we put on to protect the hanging string, and then I'm going to use my hot glue again to attach my bow to my pine cone. I'm cleaning up any excess glue with a wet wipe. And here's our finished pine cone ornament. I think this turned out really sweet. I love that some of the IOD molds are symmetrical so you can get these double-sided designs. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my final project today, I'm going to be pouring some resin into this lovely leaping reindeer. This is the Jingle mold by IOD. I've already cast the other reindeer that you see in the top left there. You can see me putting that there over the top of the wet resin. We're doing another double-sided ornament, so I'm just putting that casting on top of the wet resin and it will fuse those two together. And then once it's completely dry, I'm going to carefully take it out of the mold. And you will see there are a few little gaps here and there. If that really bothered you, you could use some hot glue to fill it in. Honestly, I don't mind. I'm then going to take my little craft knife and I'm going to remove any excess resin. Now, I probably should have put a little bit of string in that resin while it was still wet, but I wanted something a little bit more classy for this one. So at this point, I'm going to use my craft knife and I am going to make a little hole in the center of the deer so that I can add a hanging attachment. And I'm going to be using this little jewelry clasp piece here. I'm just going to flatten the sides of that, and then I am going to just make sure that that hole is big enough, and then I'm going to add some hot glue so that I can add that little clasp into that hole so that I have something to hang that reindeer from the tree on. So I'm just going to fit that in there and then let that dry. I want to add a little bit of greenery around my reindeer's neck, so I'm going to cast some of this greenery, this foliage from this mold here. I will link it below, so I'm just casting that in resin, and then I'm going to pull it out of my mold. I'm just going to pull off any of that excess resin and tidy it up, and I'm just going to double check here that it is going to fit and look the way that I want around the reindeer. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to set it to one side, and I'm going to use Dixie Belle's Chocolate Chalk Mineral Paint, and I'm going to to give this double-sided deer one coat. I did start off painting it with the bronze luxe metallic, which is what we're going to come in with next, but it would have taken too many coats to get the coverage that I want over the top of this dark white resin. So I thought I'd put down that chocolate first, and it would be a great base. It would take less coats of that bronze to get the color that I want. So I'm just going to go in and paint the entire reindeer with that chocolate chalk mineral paint, and I'm being careful not to get any of it on our little hanging attachment. I don't want that to get blocked because we need to be able to put a little ring through that a bit later. Once that's completely dry, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Luxe Bronze Metallic and I'm going to go over the top of our reindeer. It did take 1.5 coats. My second coat was only a touch-up coat. As you can see, this is a very highly pigmented product. I went with bronze paint for this, but you could definitely use a gold, you could use a silver, whatever your color scheme for your tree, you could definitely use that color on this lovely reindeer. While that's drying, I'm going to take Dixie Belle's Palmetto chalk mineral paint. This is a lovely deep green, and I'm going to paint that greenery that we cast earlier. It's just going to take one coat to get the coverage that I want here. Once that's dry, I'm going to use my hairdryer and I'm going to heat up that little piece so that it makes bending it around my reindeer a bit easier. I'm then going to manipulate it so that it will fit the reindeer the way that I want, and then I'm going to use some hot glue to attach it. I'm being careful not to use too much here because obviously I don't want it coming out the sides and ruining our lovely bronze paint. Once I had that greenery on, I did notice that some of the resin had become visible, so I just went back in and touched up with some green paint anywhere that I could see that white resin. Once that was dry, I took some more of that bronze luxe metallic and I'm just going to dab on a few little spots on the garland to mimic ornaments or lights. And I'm going to be doing the same thing on the other side as well. And then I just took a little bit more of that paint and I just ran it over the details of that greenery casting, and it really brought out all of the leaf details, and it just really tied in beautifully, I think, with the bronze on our reindeer. I then took a little metal ring that we're going to open up with my pliers. We're going to thread it through our little hanging clasp that we added earlier. I'm going to close up that loop with my pliers. I then had to decide what I was going to use to hang the reindeer, and I decided on this red velvet ribbon. I just cut off a length that I was going to need. I threaded it through the little ring that we attached, and then I'm just going to tie a simple knot up the top. I went with red here, but obviously you could pick gold, silver, whatever would go with your tree. And here's our finished reindeer ornament. I love how this double-sided reindeer ornament turned out. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's video and that it's given you some ideas on how you can use resin in molds to create some beautiful Christmas decor for your home. Let me know if you had a favorite project from today in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.